We got music here at the Fishing Guide Podcast. Don't give me that look, my friend. It's pretty exciting, you know. St. Croix Rods been around a long time, and we've been friends for a long time. So break it out. Tell them who you are and what you do there.
Yeah, Dan Johnston with St. Croix Rod Company, the National Sales Manager. Been with St. Croix for 26 years now. And Brad, you and I met pretty early in my career. I remember you taking me striper fishing, and I was so impressed with really how good a fisherman you were. I remember getting out on offshore stuff and working on things, and I thought, man, this guy's more than just a media guy. And we've been friends ever since, and we've had a lot of fun over the years. But yeah, St. Croix's been a great ride for sure. Man,
I don't know how many times you've been at the crappie event and you're shooting the docks in there, and I'm thinking, he's shooting the docks. But man, love it, because one video I took of you is you actually teaching some youngs, you know, doing it. And I got the whole video. I sent it to you. I was like so proud. And all I heard back from you was crickets.
Well,
so, I mean, I know you're busy, but
when you
being your best buddy,
paying it forward is all what this is about. You know,
That's right.
I think that we're so blessed to be in this industry, and that crappie dock shooting thing is so addicting. I mean, it really, bass anglers, anybody that likes to be involved with the angling experience, you know, people that want to fish targets and watch high-vis line, and it's so addicting. But to be able to teach kids to do it, and even adults that don't fish much, and get them to learn how to do it, it's so effective, and it's been really fun.
And though we're talking about that, you brought over some bass rods to show us. So I know one's got a pretty unique handle that's on there. But tell us a little bit about what you have here and what you brought.
Well, Legend Tournament has been around for a long time, and people are familiar with it. Anybody in the St. Croix family or even heard about St. Croix is probably familiar with Legend Tournament Bass. A bass-centric, technique-specific series, but in 23 we launched the newest version of it, which is really awesome, and I'll speak to a couple things about it, okay? It's a 27 model, technique-specific series, but what we did, Brad, is we introduced a brand new blank technology called SC4 Plus.
Okay.
Legend Tournament's always been an SC4 carbon fiber, which is a very high-strain carbon blank running linear. The Plus is a secondary fiber. In St. Croix, we build our own blanks.
Right.
So at the early stage of the blank manufacturing process, there's a second carbon fiber literally overlaid over the primary carbon fiber. So there's two, and in every model it's different. So it's like a custom rod series, and it turned out just amazing. I call it fishy. It protects line. It delivers baits great. You feel everything with it. It's been really outstanding. USA built. Great series for us.
So you talk about a series of rods. They're bass rods, they're spinning rods, bait casters. What are they?
They're bass technique specific. Absolutely targeted for bass.
So bait casters and
bait
spinning
caster
rods?
and spinning. Absolutely.
Do you know? Yeah. Do you happen to know the techniques or some of them?
Yeah, I mean, we really cover. I'm not ever going to say we cover everything.
Right.
But if you look at your jerk bait, topwater, you know, square bill, worm, bottom contact, moving bait, I could go on and on. But one thing we really did that's cool within Legend Tournament is there's a few models, a new technology called IACT. And what IACT is really cool because it's a carbon fiber primary layup, but then it has linear S-glass with it. So now think about this. Now you've got your softer deflecting glass feeling rod to pin up fish with moving baits, specifically treble hooked crankbaits.
Right.
But it has the diameter and weight of carbon. So that is a wheelhouse deal because all of us love how fish get glass, right? They just get the bait so well, but they're big and bulky and clunky, and some people just don't like to throw them, and this thing you can throw all day. So that's another technology in Legend Tournament.
Right. So you got another rod that's sitting here. What's up with that rod? Because I noticed that it's different. Right away you notice it's different. If someone's shopping or going down, I guess, Bass Pro Shop and down the aisle and they see something, they're going to notice this, aren't they?
You should have seen TSA when I tried to fly one of these through the airport.
Oh, my gosh.
I have a little cut-down version.
Right.
And the guy literally, he went like this, like, dude, what is that? Because obviously, if you look at it, you think you could go,
Right.
So, but basically, it came out of the muskie market.
Right.
And in Legend Tournament muskie, which we have Legend Tournament bass, Legend Tournament muskie, and Legend Tournament walleye. But these are bass swim bait rods, and what it does, and Brad, you know this, throwing big baits.
Right.
In some cases they wear you out. Look at the A-rig. Look at some of the giant swim baits we're throwing. And when you get your wrist too much involved, like in the past for years, just ergonomically they just wear you out. A-rig, they bite it great, but you want to put it down after 20 casts. Well, what this does is you become one. It locks in. Just hold that thing and they're just like that.
Wow.
See how it catches you right there, and you just feel like you could pull a skid loader with it. So it's really
Gives
all
you
about
that support
absolutely.
that's underneath there.
Yeah, it's called Grasp technology. It's only in 3 rods in Legend Tournament bass, and they're all heavy swim bait models.
Really?
Yeah, it's been an eye-opener. We're here at Red Crest, and we're showing that rod, and people are like, man, that makes so much sense. And a lot of people really even haven't seen it yet.
Right. So it's got kind of a grippy, the handles feels kind of grippy. It's not like something that's slippery.
It's not, but again, the way you set that up with all of your fingers ahead of it, it's really a non-issue. Because it's more of a stability factor on how that thing locks in. And you imagine this: if I were holding onto something like this and somebody tried to pull something, I'm a lot stronger when I'm like this. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
And if you think about an A-rig coming back to you 200 times in a day, that thing's pulling on you. So it's just so much more comfortable in your wrist and your hand and all the way through. So this has been a really cool addition in the series. And all of the muskie rods in Legend Tournament have this.
Oh, really?
Only 3 of them in bass do. Yep.
Oh, and the bass ones, what's the length? 7 foot, 7'10"?
Yeah, there's a 7'10".
Right.
And then we have heavy fast and heavy extra fast and extra fast. And so they're for those great big depths, right? Glide baits, big swim baits, A-rigs, anything like that that's going to wear you out.
Let's talk about rod action, because now we've talked about these 2 lures or these 2 rods that are laying there. Let's talk about rod action, because I know whenever I open up the catalog and I look at it, all of a sudden my mind kind of blows into a million pieces, like fast action, slow action on this rod tip. What does that mean? How do I know which one to pick?
Well, first of all, it's a great question, and I would say this: I'd back up and let's talk about power and action.
Okay.
Because they're mutually exclusive, but they work together. That sounds oxymoronic, but that's the truth. So power is the overall duress or force it takes to load the entirety of the blank. So a medium would be lighter than a heavy.
Right.
A heavy would be lighter than an extra heavy. Action is where does the rod bend along the blank. So moderate would bend back down in here, moving bait, crankbait, bladed jig, that type of thing.
Right.
Fast, which is what most rods are, bends right about in here. A lot of people call it 80-20 or whatever, but that's like your multi-tool, right? That fluoro, braid, copolymer, mono, anything you want to throw. Extra fast means the rod bends further towards the tip. So an extra fast, the bend is going to be way up here. This isn't, or I wouldn't even try to do it because it wouldn't happen. If I had an extra fast, I could bend that over. Beautiful for protecting fluorocarbon, drop shot, Ned rig, light wire hooks, jerk baits, anything where we're trying to impart finesse. But then we have in blanks called a shutdown, where an extra fast, it'll bend right here, but then it'll shut down into the power right away. So it's a great question. And back to your first question, why would you want what? Depends on what you're doing, right?
Right.
Crankbaits, moving baits, more moderate. Even a puncheon. You know when we punch for largemouth, tungsten's generally a little bit diameter. They'll lock down in it. You can pop out of them with too fast a rod in an action, okay?
Yeah.
But if you get an exposed hook with a jig or something like that, you want more fast. And then with fluorocarbons, lighter lines, swim jigs with braid, things like that, extra fast is beautiful.
There you go. There you answered my question. But that takes us to the next question. Why is there a price point on one pole and then the other pole? Well, that says bass fishing. Can I use that pole? It costs $119. What's the difference between $119 and a $200 rod?
Yeah, that's another good question, and I don't know if there's necessarily a rule of thumb for everybody. I mean, there's some great anglers walking around in this building that have a boat full of $110 Bass X's, which is our starting point. Then you have another angler that is into our Legend Extreme, which is $650. So it really to each his own. But I will say this: there is without a doubt when you get into more technologically advanced blanks that are more sensitive, you start to feel more, and you have more success because your only connection to that fish is your rod and your line. And if you can transmit sensitivity, not only are you feeling the bites, but you're feeling the action in the bait. So when you're looking at, what I like to tell a lot of people, Brad, is find your one bait that you want to feel the most with. For me, that's a 3/8 ounce bass jig.
Okay.
It's just, I mean, you have to take it away from me until they'd have to not bite it before I put it down, right? I want to feel everything with that. So I'm going to use a more expensive, higher performance, higher strain carbon rod. And then in some cases, like my bladed jig, for example, I don't want to feel it too much because I take it away from them. Right. So I want that rod to slow down a little bit. So, that's a personal preference, but there is a difference in what you can feel.
All right. Well, that does take us to more of the construction of the rod. Mm-hmm. Talk about guides and the wrapping of these guides. The wrapping, that takes place, where does that usually take place? What factory does that happen in?
I'm glad you asked that because we have two facilities. St. Croix North in Park Falls, Wisconsin is the largest United States rod manufacturer in the country.
Really?
Absolutely.
Hey, build me some.
Absolutely.
No, keep going.
And then we have another facility in Mexico that we own and operate solely ourselves. In both cases, the guides are hand wound. Now in northern Wisconsin, in our home office, they're literally taken home. It's called home winding. So they'll come in minivans, they'll pick up piles of them, take them home, and they'll wind them one by one.
Wow.
But what they do is they'll get the guide wound, and then they bring them back to us, and we'll put them on a laser because you can slightly move them.
Right.
And we'll laser align them, and then we finish them. And that's that flex coat seal you see over the top of it. Yeah, it's actually, they're all home wound.
And then you bake them.
Well, no.
After that part, you're ready to glue.
That's right. The rod is baked to cure the carbon fibers in the resin.
I got you.
Guide's going after that.
All right. Well, that does take us to these handles, and I got to ask, you have lots of handles.
Yeah.
Why so many handles?
Because there's so many angler desires. And there's still anglers that like full cork. There's some that like slightly shorter for working around casting like this. There's some that like longer for leverage. You look at this handle, obviously it's a leverage issue. How much longer that is, right?
Yeah, that's a long handle.
And then you have split grip versus full cork, and that is absolutely a personal preference. Both work great, and we have anglers that will debate you on either way, and both are right.
Right. There you go. So that leaves us with a little time. Let's talk fishing because I'm tired of talking about fishing poles. But longest rod that you normally fish with. What's the longest rod St. Croix has? They have an 8.5 foot snooky rod for those.
We do. We have
salmon.
We have them longer than that in multi-piece, but that depends on species. We could talk about fly, salmon, steelhead, but if we want to truncate it down to bass, for example, we're a 7-11 right now, and part of that's freight. You get longer than 8 foot, it's very difficult for us to get you one without you paying a fortune. But I think it's a good segue to talk about why rod length.
Okay.
Right? Because that's a great question. And generally speaking, this is how I answer that. There's not necessarily one length for everything, and there's a reason for that. If you're flipping or punching, for example, the reason why you want something a little longer is multifold. Number one, if you think about it, if I flip this thing out and I'm set up, that longer rod's going to get a better angle attack on the water, right?
Okay.
Secondly, I'm going to pick up more line on the hook set because of the longer rod. It's just physics. It's going to pick up more slack. If I get one swimming with me, it's going to pick up line. If I get bit way out on a cast on a wide open point with a football jig, it's going to pick up more line. The converse of that, you and I are going down a bank flipping laydowns with a spinnerbait, and we're from 20 foot away from the target. That 7.5, 7.11 would be too much. We wouldn't hit the broadside of a barn with it, right?
Right.
So it depends on what we're doing with it, but the longer rods throw farther and they pick up more line and they control fish. The shorter rods are much more accurate. A lot of forward-facing, like Demiki rig type stuff, right under you, video game stuff. That longer rod can work against you.
Right.
Because the tip's closer to your hand, you have more control over it. If that makes sense.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you have it. Hey, that takes us over to PICO, to Tackle Time, which is sponsored by PICO Lures. They have a complete line of hard and soft baits. For everything you're throwing on your St. Croix rod, PICO's got it for sure, and it's going to catch some game fish, big stripers, largemouth. Of course, we said stripers, but any of those game fish, that's what we're talking about. Check them out at PICOLures.com. If they want to check out more about St. Croix rods, where can they look? Where can they find the information?
Yeah, any authorized St. Croix dealer, right on our dealer website, dealer locator, but stcroixrods.com, you'll get everything you need to know.
There you go. There you have it. Like I always like to end the show, make sure you keep your hooks sharp and on the water.